What fun is a model railroad if you can't play with it, even if it's not finished yet? And that's what we're doing today. Hey everybody, it's Jimmy from the DIY and Digital, and today we're doing a little op session on my model railroad. This video is brought to you with support from my patrons on Patreon. These videos would not be possible without them, and if you'd like to join the Patreon community, you can follow the link in the description below and join for as little as $1 a month. Before we begin, I want to say that I'm not doing everything completely prototypically, probably not even close, but this is a really fun way to operate a model railroad. Today we're going to be doing what is called a sequence operation, which is where we do a series of tasks in a certain order to complete the operation of the layout. There are going to be three main tasks in the sequence operation. The first is going to be sorting all of the cars in the yards for their deliveries and pickups. The second is going to be a local train that heads over to the West Valley Industrial District to switch all of the industries over on that side, including a chemical plant and a scrapyard. The third task is going to be a local that goes up to East Valley to switch the two industries over there in the town. Because I'm doing this solo today, I will be completing the second and third task with the same locomotive. In addition to this, I will also have a manifest freight that needs to pick up a couple of cars from the yard, and I'll have an intermodal train that's running through, causing trains to yield to its right-of-way. In the yard, these cars will need to be picked up by the manifest freight, these cars will need to be taken to the West Valley Industrial area, and these cars will need to be taken to East Valley. Our locomotive doing the switching today is NS7138, which is a Fox Valley Models Jeep 60. Its first task is going to begin sorting the cars for the manifest freight. Note that it is using several of the cars as a handle for the cars that it is picking up and sorting. Now that is two of the three cars that need to go on the manifest freight. We're going to grab the third when we continue sorting. The East Valley train only consists of three cars, so we're going to go ahead and get that built since it's the simplest. We're going to temporarily store the cars for East Valley over here on track 4. Now we can begin building the West Valley train. The first thing we need to do is grab this gondola that's going to be attached to the two empty hoppers right there to go to the scrap metal facility. The next thing we need to do is we need to adjust the position of the boxcar and the two covered hopper cars. The reason for this is that the boxcar is going to be dropped off before the two covered hoppers on the same shared track. All of the tank cars are in a good position so that I can leave them where they are for now. Tracks 2 and 3 are the ones that are holding the West Valley train. Now I need to go back and grab the third car for the manifest freight. And what I'm going to do is pull that car off of track 1, then use it as a handle to pull the East Valley train off, put the East Valley train on track 1, and then stack the third car for the manifest over with the rest of the cars on track 4. Rather than returning to its stall, 7138 is going to wait with the 3 cars for the manifest so that it can pull them out for that train. The manifest freight is actually waiting for clearance from the dispatcher right now, which has given right of way to an intermodal train that is on its way, that's actually currently in East Valley heading down the mountain. The intermodal train is powered by a Kato SD70M and a Atlas SD60. Now that the intermodal train has passed, the dispatcher has given permission for the manifest train to pull in and get its pickups. The manifest train is powered by an Atlas SD60M and a Fox Valley Models GE ES44AC in a Norfolk Southern Heritage paint scheme for the Lehigh Valley. The manifest train pulls up just past the crossover as not to foul the turnout, and then 7138 begins to move with the 3 cars for the manifest train. It's going to pull them out and sit them out on the track so that the manifest can back up, connect to it, and take off. The manifest loops back around and heads back out onto the main line. .7138 has returned to the yard, but is parked on track 4 to give clearance to our road switcher for the locals today, which is a Scale Trains Rivet Counter Norfolk Southern -940C number 8888. 8888 backs in to pick up its cars for its West Valley run. We're going to leave the East Valley run here for now. It's going to go ahead and pick up the scrapyard and the first 2 tank cars first, and then pick up the rest of the tank cars after that. Once it's picked up everything, it's going to wait for clearance as another intermodal train comes through. This is what I like to use intermodal trains for. They're great for having freight trains that run through the layout as you're doing operations to present another obstacle for you. So I run this through a couple times during an operation. Now that everything is clear, 8888 can head out with its train to the West Valley Industrial Area. One thing you can do to make your runs a little bit longer on these smaller layouts is to do multiple laps around your layout. This is called adding mileage to the run, and it can make running your layout a little bit more fun, plus it can give you a chance to rail fan your model railroad. After a few laps, 8888 pulls into the West Valley Industrial Area. This is one reason why I really like to test out running my trains to figure out how I need to block things, because I actually made a bit of an error in blocking this train and setting it up. And what I mean by that is I should have taken the 2 covered hoppers in the boxcar and put them in front of the train rather than at the back. So what I'm going to have to do is temporarily store all of my other pickups in the extra track that is at their industries, and then I'm also going to have to do some reversing moves and everything to get everything into position, because the boxcar also needs to be on the other side of the 2 hopper cars, and that's going to become very evident what you're going to see why here in a minute. The first thing I need to do is do the pickups of the 2 covered hopper cars and boxcar that need to be picked up on this track. And I deliberately made this difficult by having this little crossover right here, and it can hold a maximum of 2 standard length cars. So I'm going to grab all 3 cars, but I'm only going to be able to do the 2 covered hopper cars first out and then come back for the boxcar. Now that we have those 3 cars, I'm actually going to need to temporarily place them on the main line, and this is not ideal. I don't like fouling the main line, but this is only a temporary thing, and actually after looking at this, I figured out a better way to do that, which I will do in future operations, that I will not be fouling the main. But I'm going to put these 3 cars on the main line while I do some switching. So now here is the other thing that has happened. I actually need to drop off the boxcar first, and I'm not going to have enough room on that little siding to be able to maneuver and get all 3 cars down into where they need to be. So what I'm going to have to do is temporarily drop the 2 covered hoppers off and then go switch the boxcar and drop it off, and then come back and get the 2 hoppers and drop them off. Now that I've dropped off the boxcar, I can go ahead and drop off the 2 covered hopper cars. Once that is complete, I can go back on the main line and pick up the 3 cars that I left there so that I can unvalve the main and put these on my return train. I drop these off just past the turnout to the scrapyard and the chemical plant, and what I'm basically going to do is grab all of my pickups using the drop-offs as handles and simply move them into position on my return train, and then once I'm done using them as handles, I go ahead and put the drop-offs into their positions. And now I can grab my return train and take it back to the yard. Now I can drop off my returns into tracks 2 and 3 of the yard, and I'm going to split my train between these two. Once I have completed this, I will be able to pick up my 3 cars that are meant to go to East Valley and take off and drop them off. All right, we are heading up the hill to East Valley. We have 2 industries up here to switch. We have my little lumber yard that I built on Trainmaster's TV and a concrete batch plant. They're both trailing turnouts, and what that basically means is that the sidings converge with the main line in the same direction of travel that the train is going. If the train was coming the opposite way, they would be called facing point turnouts. So this makes it a pretty easy switch where we just back in, pick up, drop off, back in, pick up, drop off. So pretty straightforward switching here. And because I do have some scenery done, I decided to whip out my little POV camera. It's a little run cam. I'll link one of those in the description below, but get some cool angles of the layout and the mess that is all around it in my train room, but just some fun there. Our drop-offs for the concrete batch plant were the ones on the back of our train, so we started off with those. We picked up the empties that were there and placed them behind the 2 turnouts just for a little bit of temporary storage, and then we did our 2 drop-offs. Next up, it was time for the lumber yard. We're going to need to pick up a bulkhead flat car that was carrying some large lumber, not sure what that was there for. But then we need to drop off this box car, which is going to be carrying something. Maybe they milled some doors or some nicer furniture that needed a little bit of protection. And once again, there's the run cam right there looking at my messy room around the layout. And we'll go ahead and pick those up and pull them back out. And now we go ahead and put our bulkhead flat car on our return train. Next up, we go ahead and drop off our boxcar in the lumberyard so it can be loaded up with whatever it needs to be loaded up with. And we go back, pick up our return cars, and then we can head back to the yard. Once we are back at the yard, we take our 3 returns and store them on track 1. Having put in a good day's work, 8888 pulls back onto track 5, which is our locomotive storage track, and goes for a rest. Once that is done, 7138 can move and pull back onto track 5, freeing up track 4 for any drop-offs that may show up. You can operate a model railroad any way you want. This is a great way to operate it if you're by yourself or maybe only have one person there with you. And I actually have another even simpler way to operate. I'll link that video right here at the end. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, and happy railroading. Right now my internet is poop, so I really hope that this episode gets out on time. That is just bad.